PJNet.TV, a brand new week. It is Monday night. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have a bumper rolling. We have Roger standing by. We are recording. We are streaming live. Chat room waiting. Counting down to Studio 8 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening and welcome to a brand new week here on PJNet.TV. We are broadcasting live tonight, and we have something very special for you tonight. Certainly not a first-time guest, but a returning guest from long ago. And I have some special good news in a way. If you will recall, Casper last week, who appears normally on Monday nights at the bottom of the hour, said he was going to be off on an anniversary celebration and we needed to record tonight's program. Well, folks, tonight's program has not been recorded, but that's the bad news. The good news is our guest tonight is an old-time friend of PJNet, Roger the refugee from the bayous of Louisiana. And Roger is one of the most insightful political pundits that I know. And we're fortunate to have him today with us. Roger, there's two topics I would like to really get your take on tonight. The first topic we'll devote about half the time to will be the Barrett nomination to the Supreme Court. And then we would like to move on to the overall presidential election, but both from the perspective of speculating what is the Democratic strategy. They need a Hail Mary, it would seem to me, but let's rely on your prognostication acumen. Barrett, you were strongly advocating Barrett to be the nominee when Kavanaugh was nominated. She would have been your first choice.
Was and I think that a lot more conservatives are familiar with her now than were familiar with her then, because she got into the news then and a lot of things happened. Look, the fact of the matter is that Dianne Feinstein gave Amy Coney Barrett an unintentional assist when during her confirmation hearings for the circuit position where she is now, when she just really absolutely attacked her over her faith. And found her faith disturbing and everything like that. And that got a lot of play. There's even T-shirts with "The Dogma Lives loudly within me" and things like that because of that whole hearing. I was already familiar with her because I'm a junkie and because she's from New Orleans originally. So yeah, real happy. Corked for Scalia, home run pick. She will be a fantastic Supreme Court justice. Before I get into how the Democrats are going to handle her nomination, let me just say this flat out. She will be confirmed. She will be confirmed. She will be confirmed before the election. The Republicans will run this through quickly, and it looks to me like they're probably only going to lose 2 votes, Collins and Murkowski in Alaska. Yeah, it looks like Romney's on board. And who was the other one that we had to worry about a little bit. So she will be confirmed. Now, of course, the Democrats' normal playbook, well, actually, let's call it the Biden playbook, because Joe Biden was the Judiciary Chair, what was the Judiciary Committee Chair back when things first got real nasty in these fights, when Robert Bork was nominated for the court. And that was really the first time that the tactic was used of just absolutely attacking the character and absolutely trashing a nominee. And they managed to defeat Bork. And the term borking even began to get used, and that was Biden's Judiciary Committee that did that. That was Biden's Judiciary Committee with the Clarence Thomas fiasco. Biden was the Judiciary Chair when George Bush was president, and when a couple of years before he was going to be out, when he still had 2 years left in his term, he said, we're not going to give him another nominee if he gets in. He's a lame duck, and we're not going to give him another nominee. So, of course, that is why the Republicans called it the Biden rule when they first didn't give a vote to Merrick Garland when he got nominated. Now, one of the things the Democrats are going to do big time is they're going to harp on this idea of hypocrisy. Okay. And they're going to say the Republicans didn't give a vote to Garland. They said that we should wait until the next election. This is even closer to the election. They are being absolute hypocrites for not waiting until after the election and after the new presidential term and Senate term begins, so on and so forth. Well, first of all, the situations are different for a couple of reasons. One, that Obama was in his, George Bush way back when was in his second term. Obama was in his second term when they did not allow him a nominee in the election year. He was essentially a lame duck. And Trump is not a lame duck. Trump is running for re-election. So the situation is different. But secondly, even if I was to buy their hypocrisy argument, which I don't, what I would not buy is the idea that they wouldn't be doing the same thing if they were
if given the opportunity. Yeah.
The war on the Judiciary Committee started in the 80s. It gradually got worse and worse. Mark, you realize Scalia had been approved by a 96-2 vote. Ginsburg was approved by a 96-2 vote. Those days are over. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay. And those kind of votes don't happen anymore. It used to basically be the president gets to pick who goes on the Supreme Court, and unless they are just an absolutely morally bankrupt person or absolutely unqualified for the position, you vote for them. Well, the Democrats changed that. The war started. It was tit for tat. It got worse and worse over the years. Eventually, the Republicans did away with eventually the Democrats did away with the filibuster on lower court judges, which kept Republicans from being able to stop them from smashing everybody through the court. But then Republicans turned around and ended it for Supreme Court justices. So that's kind of how we got here. And the fact of the matter is the system's blown up. In fact, even Lindsey Graham, who, Mark, I don't know if you're aware of this, he said something he probably shouldn't have said 4 years ago. Or not 4 years ago, but 4 years ago. He said something he probably shouldn't have said. He said when he opposed giving a hearing to Merrick Garland, he said, if we win the upcoming election and then 4 years from now it's the final year before the election, I will not support giving our president a nominee during the election year. And you can come back and you can use this tape against me. Well, of course, when you say something like that, and then you can tape against him. But his response was, oh, no, all bets have been off since the Kavanaugh hearing. The Kavanaugh hearing took it further than anybody's ever taken it before. That was it. The normal decorum does not apply.
Yeah, and the gloves are off. Yeah.
Yeah, the gloves are off. It's a state of war between the two parties, and that's where it is. So that's where it is. The Democrats, because Amy is a woman, and because she really does just appear to be absolutely squeaky clean, and also eminently qualified. When I say eminently qualified, even though she didn't go to an Ivy League law school, and she'll actually be the first justice on the Supreme Court of the current justices not to have gone to an Ivy League. She did go to Notre Dame, which is a very good law school. Also, she graduated first in her class at Notre Dame. And when she clerked for Scalia, all of her professors, whether liberal or conservative, wrote her a recommendation. One of her professors said she was quite simply the best student that she had ever had. And all of her clerks that clerked with her in the Supreme Court, including ones that clerked for the liberals, the ones that clerked for Ginsburg, have come out and said, no, incredible person, incredible smart person, scholar, great woman, totally qualified to be on the court. So, you'd have to go about just some sort of made-up politics of personal destruction. It didn't work well for them with Kavanaugh, so I don't think they can get away with it now. I think they're going to almost ignore her. There'll be a few attacks. There'll be some attacks on her faith by some of the more extreme members of the committee. But I think that they're going to attack the process. And I think that, Mark, they will do everything they can to slow the process down, to slow walk it. Everything from objecting and walking out to invoking what's called the 2-hour rule, which if a senator invokes, says that the committee hearings can only last for 2 hours once the Senate is in session. So they'll do everything they can to slow this thing down and try to make it go as slowly as possible. But they don't have the numbers in the Senate to do it. They don't have the numbers to stop this thing. So Amy Coney Barrett gets confirmed. They're going to scream bloody murder, and they're going to call it a stolen seat. Okay, so that's what's going to happen in the now. And what they are threatening to do is pack the court if they win this upcoming election. And by I mean win, I mean taking the majority in the Senate, as well as Biden winning. Some people don't realize that the number of Supreme Court justices is not set down in the Constitution. So it can simply be changed legislatively. And the Democrats have threatened to end the filibuster for everything, and to simply legislatively increase the number of justices to the Supreme Court, say from 9 to 13, and then seat 4 liberals. Here's the thing, though. They were starting to make those threats before Ginsburg died. They were already making those threats. We were already in this type of a position. So I don't even think that the Republicans putting Ginsburg through makes that more likely. I just think it makes us all realize that once again, the Supreme Court is front and center in this election. And guys, when you cast your vote in this election, you got to remember how important the Supreme Court is, and how important it is that we try and have a Republican majority in the Senate, and that we keep Donald Trump as president of the United States.
Most of what you're describing, I would characterize as a, not necessarily scorched earth, but it would characterize the conduct of a defeated enemy in retreat, setting booby traps along the way.
Yes. And, it's, and the fact of the matter is, we can't control the future. We can only control the now. And now we put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court. By the way, the liberals, I don't particularly like it, but I use it sometimes because the liberals are so irritated by it. They had given Ruth Bader Ginsburg the nickname of the notorious RBG. And some people have started referring to Amy Coney Barrett as either just, as some have actually said, the glorious ACB. Or just the ACB, and just as a way of trolling liberals. And it gets liberals really, really, really irritated.
I just tell them to grin and bear it.
And upset, But incredible woman, Mark. I don't want to go on about it too much because I know we're sticking mainly to the prognostication here, but brilliant scholar, possibly to the right of Scalia. She says she has the exact same judicial philosophy as Scalia, but her one criticism of him is that she thought he of all people paid a little bit too much attention to precedent. Okay. And that it was only in the rarest of circumstances that she would go outside of what the founders had decided, because the precedent had been established for so long and the whole society had built up, around that precedent.
And what is the Latin binary nomenclature for that concept?
Stare decisis. Stare decisis. And it is the idea that you want to be incredibly slow to change something that has been considered settled law for a long time, because society sort of builds itself around settled law. Other laws get passed, institutions get built up, businesses get built up, everything. A whole society reacts to this is the law, okay? And Democrats are trying to use that to save Roe v. Wade. Saying that it's been around for a long time. But, Mark, the Supreme Court has reversed itself on precedent before, and it can do so anytime it wants to. And the Dred Scott decision basically allowed slavery to continue. And, the Brown versus Board of Education, upheld separate but equal in the schools and allowed for segregation, and the Supreme Court reversed itself later. So certainly on what you could call the biggest of issues, the court has sometimes gone back and reversed itself. And on something as fundamental as both the right to life and states' rights in the whole abortion debate, this is something that can be revisited. So we'll see what happens.
Let me speculate a moment. Scalia, when he spoke on abortion, he was careful to say, my personal opinion is not for public broadcast. He said, I do have an opinion about what the Constitution says about it. And he says the Constitution is silent on the issue. So he never publicly argued or used his position on the Supreme Court to make a moral argument against abortion.
He said states had to pass whatever restrictions they wanted to because the Constitution.
That's where I was headed. So let's kind of divorce ourselves for a moment from the emotional desire, which we all should have, that abortion should be illegal. If Roe v. Wade were overturned, that would not make abortion illegal.
No, there's about a third of the states it would be immediately overnight. And some of the other states would pass further restrictions on abortions. California wouldn't. California would do nothing. The only way we're ever going to stop abortion in California is if we really change the mind of the whole country and you ended up having some kind of a national abortion bill or something like that went through Congress. But no, the Constitution is silent about it. Some people argue that, well, what about the right to life? And so they'll go on about that. I'm sorry, I have a call coming through.
Well, Scalia, I'm glad you brought that up because Scalia did comment on the constitutionality of right for life. He said, no, the Constitution does not guarantee your life. The Constitution guarantees that your life cannot be taken without due process. And he said in the Roe v. Wade decision, his dissent was that the Supreme Court, literally made up out of thin air a legal concept called substantive due process, which is code for, well, the mother thought about it and decided to have the abortion.
Right.
That's, I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but
No,
that was his argument. Now, many states, in anticipation, they could kind of see with the Trump election and the Supreme Court, many states took initiatives to pass laws that were unconstitutional, and they knew it. And
Yes.
of course, they were hoping it would go before the Supreme Court and maybe by chance get upheld. Of course, it never was. But those laws are still on the books. They are just on the books as unconstitutional, therefore null and void, but they didn't repeal them. So what that means is, in the event of a decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, those laws that were null and void by virtue of Roe v. Wade would then be valid immediately. No further action need be taken. Other states have, they would have to legislate things, and some states simply want abortion. But I just wanted to bring up the idea that if Barrett should be nominated, and if the Supreme Court should decide to overturn Roe v. Wade in the future, we should rejoice. We should. But don't get too drunk on that. No. Because abortion will still be available in many states throughout this land.
There'll be less abortions, but it won't disappear. And women will travel from states where it's illegal, states where it's legal. But let me tell you on that front about the number of lives that will be saved. Studies have shown again and again and again, it's one of the reasons pro-lifers like to pass 24-hour waiting periods for abortion and things like that, that if a woman does not get the abortion the day that she's in the clinic signing the papers at the abortion, over half the time she will not go back and get it. Right. That has to be scheduled at a future date. Over half the time she changes her mind and doesn't do it. Right. And that's one of the reasons why Planned Parenthood likes to slam them right in there. It's with almost a car sales, you buy today, you drive today type of thing. where they want that decision made, they want payment made, and they want the woman to go right in and have the abortion that day. Before we move off of this, though, because I guess, my prognostication is that they're going to do everything they can to slow walk it. They're going to do everything they can to threaten scorched earth, but they know they can't stop it. And although one or two Democratic senators might get kind of nasty, I don't think they're going to get as nasty as they did against Kavanaugh, because they saw it didn't work against Kavanaugh, and she's a tougher target. Kavanaugh was a guy, and Kavanaugh was a guy who used to like to drink and party. Okay. This is a different type of an individual.
Right. What disappointed me, and I think we're going to see a replay of this, is in Kavanaugh, not only the things you've pointed out, the character assassination, okay, but none of the debates seem to be centered around. I'm reading this opinion you wrote about this case. There was no substantive debate about judicial discretion or anything like that. It was all about character assassination and the defense against thereof. I think we're going to see another round. I hope that this woman has never been recorded or on tape using the N-word, because if there is such a tape in existence, it will surface.
Oh, even if they have to selectively edit it, even if she's saying, look, some people horribly say blah blah, they'll go in and they'll selectively
they cannot ignore the race card. They'll have to find some way to play it, in spite of the fact that she's adopted 2 black children.
Black children. Natural birth, 2 adopted. The 2 adopted are both black kids from Haiti, and her youngest is Down syndrome. Her youngest is special needs, and so yeah, just a wonderful. And you may get some attack over the People of Praise group that she's a part of. Mark, we've talked about it before. There's a whole bunch of different groups like that. People of Praise is a charismatic group comprised mostly of Catholics, but also of a number of different Pentecostals from different Christian religions, who basically pray together, have mentors, help out with each other's problems. They don't even leave their initial churches. They're still members of their own churches. But it's a good group, and it's not going to touch her. Last thing on her, Mark, she's also super solid on the Second Amendment. I have read her opinions on the Second Amendment. She's been a dissenting vote a couple of times when certain restrictions were upheld, that she said in light of Casey should not have been upheld, and that she said in light of the positions of the founders. She's not one of these people who believes in the blanket, in the idea of the Second Amendment, these are her words, being a second-class right. It is a right equal to all of the other rights, in the Constitution. And just because someone is convicted of a felony, she said the founding fathers did not immediately remove the gun rights from anyone who was convicted of a felony. Now, you could lose your gun rights if you were thought of as being a dangerous person. So she's open to the idea of somebody who's found to be psychotic or somebody who's found to be a violent felon losing their gun rights. But because the state decided to make it a felony to kill a particular form of squirrel, okay, or because the state decided to make it a felony not to get your kid vaccinated or do this or do that or do
or not
the other,
pay your child support, or whatever,
He's going to say, no, this is not a dangerous person, and this person does not lose their Second Amendment rights. And so she's strong in that. She will just be straight up solid. There won't be surprises with her, I don't think, at all. So she'll be solid.
Unfortunately, there will be no surprises, but the depths to which we have sunk, where the Senate is a deliberative body, where where heads rule over hearts. It's really a sad day on the political landscape.
Only time can some conservatives will be disappointed in her. Some conservatives who aren't that educated and who don't quite understand the job of a justice, want conservative justices to act like liberal justices. And they want conservative justices to make policy decisions from the bench. And if something is bad policy, to call it unconstitutional, and if something is good policy, to leave it in. She won't do that. She will purely be, no, what does the Constitution say? What does the law say? And it's not my job to decide whether something is good policy or not. It's my job to follow the law, and that's what she'll do.
Okay, well, the implications here. Let's kind of move on to the current election cycle. The latest is that Trump. First of all, the New York Times says, so I'm told, that they have obtained 10 years of tax returns. Well, then why don't you just publish them?
Why don't you just publish them? They haven't published them. They say that he only paid $750 in taxes the year he was elected president. Maybe he lost money that year. I don't know. Mark, this isn't going to change your vote. This is a nothing. Trump probably shouldn't have said he was going to release his tax returns all those years ago.
No, he should not have. He's under no obligation to.
Battle with the IRS over a 10-year-old audit. And that's not uncommon for very, very wealthy people who have very, very complicated tax returns to be involved with. But, if you hate Trump, this bothers you. If you like Trump, it doesn't bother you. If you're voting Trump for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for him. This is going to be a nothing issue. What is interesting is that we have a debate tomorrow night. Now, Biden has disappeared for a few days before the debate, which tells me that he's going through both debate prep and sleep. And in my opinion, they will probably inject him with enough Adderall, or Ritalin. I don't think they can do that every day, which is why one of the reasons he doesn't campaign much. But I do think they can probably inject Biden with enough Ritalin that he can be coherent for a given evening. And so I expect him to be coherent for a given evening. And I mean, I hate to say that I'm hoping he has a horrible senior moment. A part of me is, though. I mean, it just because, hey, this is an important election. I want him to lose the election. I don't think anybody quite knows what to expect with the debate tomorrow night, with the various weird coronavirus rules and so on and so forth. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll see if it affects things. Again, the only way I see anything of substance really coming out of the debate is if Biden has a senior moment. I think that would be significant. Other than that, I think Biden will be Biden. I think Trump will be Trump, and I don't think it'll move things very much.
I would tend to say what you said earlier. I don't think any votes are going to be changed. There'll be a lot of press, a lot of coverage, a lot of spin, a lot of commentary, a lot of punditing, but the people who, it's not going to change any votes, and I agree. I wish that Trump would challenge Biden to a drug test. let's do this right now. Oh yeah,
he has already publicly challenged him to a drug test.
Good, yeah, because I think you're right. If Biden might be able to maintain better composure if he were chemically assisted. The
but
thing
that gets the strategy in this election too. Half of it is that Biden can't work that hard on the campaign trail, that he can't speak that long. They're not putting Harris out there that much either, and they're not putting his wife out there that much either. The Democratic strategy in this campaign, they're banking on just running Biden as the generic, supposedly moderate Democrat, and on making this election nothing but a referendum on Trump. Either you like Trump or you don't. And they think that Trump is slightly upside down. Their impression is they think that Trump is slightly upside down. So they think they can win the election just keeping Biden in the basement and making the election just about Trump. I don't think they can. I think they're going to lose this election, Mark. I'm not confident. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be super confident because there's certain things that you can't have data for. You can look at polls, and then you can look at the methodology behind the polls, and you can say, okay, this is a good poll, this is a bad poll, so on and so forth. But there's no way to really poll the person who almost never votes, but just very occasionally votes, isn't a conservative or a liberal. It's kind of a moderate, but just kind of a regular person living his life and taking care of his family. And I think the Democrats have gone so over the top crazy, linking themselves up with riots and Antifa and Black Lives Matter, that you're going to have an historic turnout of what I would call the WTF voter, who is just looking at the situation and saying, no, this is just insane. This is just absolutely insane. I can't support defunding the police. I can't support riots. I can't support just trashing a police officer anytime anything happens. The Breonna Taylor case, which is one of the cases that for a long time, the only thing that we heard was
Let me interrupt you for just a moment, Roger. Hold your thought. I'm not trying to detour you. Folks, our guest that normally appears at this time at the bottom of the hour on Monday is celebrating an anniversary with his wife. And we'll give him a pass, but that will allow us this special live edition with Roger, our political pundit and prognosticator. Roger, remember where your thoughts were. The things that, as a sociologist, okay, as a statistician, first of all, they were all wrong when Trump got elected. So I don't believe I have difficulty accepting any polls, but there are some things that I can see, I can observe. There are boat rallies with thousands of boats. There are car parades with literally thousands. I can see a lot of energy behind the Trump campaign.
There's no energy.
I almost want to feel sorry for him.
Yeah, no, there's no energy on the other side.
When you are waving at imaginary crowds coming out of the airplane, that is pathetic.
Yeah, it could be a blowout for Trump. What the Democrats are banking on is that, they think that while Trump has a lot of people who love him and are very excited about him, that there's more who dislike him. And that, that all these people who just don't give a crap about Biden but don't like Trump are going to somehow turn out and vote for Biden. That it's just going to be an anti-Trump vote. But you see, they've gone too far. Like I was talking about the Black Lives Matter thing, defund the police. The Breonna Taylor case, I was silent on that for a long time. And people would ask me about it, and I would say, well, the only thing I've ever heard about it is what's coming from BLM. So I don't really know what the circumstances were. Well, the district attorney or the state attorney general, after it left the grand jury, and 2 of the 3 cops involved were not charged at all. And one was charged not with killing Breonna Taylor. One was charged with basically reckless endangerment of life that could have killed someone, but didn't kill Breonna Taylor. But everything we'd been told about that case turned out to be a lie. We were told that the police had entered the apartment without knocking. That's not true. They knocked. And that's based on all of the testimony that went on before the grand jury, including various witnesses. We were told they didn't identify themselves as police. That's not true. They identified themselves as police. We were told it was a bad warrant. It was a legitimate warrant. We were told it was the wrong address. It was the right address. We were told she was in bed sleeping. She wasn't. She was standing up in a hallway. It's true that they didn't find any drugs inside the apartment, but drug dealing, they had them on tape and for, dealing drugs for quite some time.
She'd sold them all already. Yeah, she was out of stock.
Well, what she did is she enabled her drug dealing boyfriends, and she drove her drug dealing boyfriends around, and one was in jail and one was out of jail. And the one that was out of jail opened fire at police. And when police returned fire, he was behind her and she got hit. Okay,
a real brave man using her as a shield.
The 2 police officers who actually shot her have been not charged. They're not being charged with any crime, and they are fine. Mm-hmm. One police officer had already been fired, and now he's been charged with a felony, although he didn't kill her. And that was a police officer who was not inside, but as soon as shooting started, he started shooting. And he shot kind of wild, and he shot too many times. A couple of his bullets even went into a neighboring apartment, but they didn't hit anybody. Okay, so one cop freaked out, ignored his training, and started shooting like crazy once gunshots were being fired. He's been fired. He's been charged with a felony. There's not a miscarriage of justice there. But we were just lied to about every detail of that case, and that's what they do. They trash police officers. And Mark, they don't just hurt police, they hurt blacks. You know, when blacks don't cooperate with police, when blacks are hostile with police, they are more likely to get killed. They are less likely to call the police when there are problems in their community. And when you're going out and lying and saying that there is an epidemic of unarmed, innocent black people being assassinated by white police officers, you cause death, you cause racial strife, you cause hatred. And that is what BLM is doing. And the Democrats are right with them, hook, line, and sinker, the whole way. And, you know, people have seen the riots. Mark, I want to talk to you about Florida a little bit, because Florida is an interesting state.
I would love to. I can't wait. But let me go back. And one, I don't agree entirely that the strategic playbook has one page, and that being an anti-Trump referendum. I don't disagree with that. I just don't think that's the only page in their book. The other page in their book is steal the election through voter fraud.
Oh, and that's going to be significant. And one of the reasons, you know, we need 9 on the Supreme Court. There was already an outrageous state Supreme Court decision in Pennsylvania, which, remember, Trump won Pennsylvania by what? Something like 50,000 votes. Okay. And no Republican had won in a while. So Pennsylvania, big battleground state. Well, what Democrats pushed for in that state was extending the amount of time to count the absentee or the mail-in ballots, because there was going to be so many of them. Okay. And that wasn't necessarily a completely unreasonable request. Okay. I don't necessarily think the judge should be able to go in and just rewrite the law. Okay. But I could see the reason behind it. Well, the judge
can have a debate about it, you know.
Judge did go in and rewrite the law and say, okay, you got an extra 3 days to count ballots. But what he also did is he specifically came out and stated that any ballot will be presumed to have been cast on time if it either has a postmark that says that it was, or if it has an illegible postmark, or if it doesn't have a postmark. That the only ballots that would be disqualified and deemed ineligible would be those that were clearly postmarked after the day of the election. So he's just told them, you got 3 days to come up with these new
manufacture ballots.
Okay. And or make the postmarks illegible. Now, both sides have freaked out about, and I'll tell you, there's the story recently in Pennsylvania, of all places, of 9 ballots getting found that had been thrown away, and 7 of them turned out to be for Trump. 2 of them turned out to be for Biden. Well, what they were is they were military ballots, okay, that had been thrown away. And Democrats are almost saying, oh, you see, there was only 9. 9 is such a small number. And I'm thinking, hey, what were the odds that those things were going to get found in a dumpster and turned in? Very slim. Very, very, very slim. If they found one collection of 9, how many are there? Look, I don't want to...
Or let's just use ordinary statistical extrapolation. 7 out of 9 votes that are illegit would have been for Trump.
Would have been for Trump. Now, exactly, because they threw away ones that were coming from a specific area. Okay. And, different military bases, the racial, first of all, military has tended to be more Republican. They're claiming that this time that Biden's doing great in the polls with military voters. They're claiming that Biden is losing. Okay. That Trump is losing among military voters. I have a hard time believing that, but they're making that claim. but still, different military bases have different gender makeups, different ethnic makeups, different regional makeups as far as where most of their people are from, and it is known sometimes, like, okay, if you're in Broward County, for example, you know that most of the absentee ballots there would be for Biden. Okay, so you would simply know that if you could throw away 1,000 ballots, even if you didn't open up and look at them, that they were going to be mostly Biden ballots. Your state's fascinating. So voter fraud is going to be one of the means they're going to use. And they're not going to concede this election unless it is not close.
Let me pause you one more time, and then we'll cut loose on where you were headed with the state of Florida, which I'm anxious to talk about. I have this belief that the average Democrat, there's a lot of Democrats in this country, and I don't think that they are characterized by the ones we see on the media. But let's suppose that you and I are Democrats, and we're sitting down in one of those fine Louisiana restaurants having a cup of latte. Mm-hmm. And we're discussing Democrat politics and things we agree with, and suddenly we're interrupted by a mob with bullhorns coming in marching. I really believe that a moderate Democrat wants quiet enjoyment of their time. We just want to be peaceful. I think they are doing themselves a great disservice, using. The other thing is that they're seeing, like, if you point out the facts in the Breonna case versus the lies. Okay, folks, are you going to vote for judicial process by street mob? Is this the America you want? Because they're lying. Well, so you can say we can have a court or we can have street mobs. Which would you prefer? I think most people, not all, but most people, even if you're a registered Democrat, would say, whatever the problem is, let's keep the courts. If there's a problem, let's fix the court process. But no, let's not have mob rule. And that is what they are advocating. Florida.
They are. Florida. I want to tell you what I've seen, and then I want to ask you what you've seen, okay? Because you're living there, and I'm just looking at data from polls and things like that. Now I'm seeing a mix of polls from Trump slightly ahead to Biden slightly ahead. But when I look at the internals of those polls, they don't seem to add up to me, and they make me think that the ones that have Biden ahead have a fairly skewed sample, because what they're all pretty consistent with is that Biden, first of all, I know that Republicans always do better in Florida with Latinos than they do other places because of the number of Cubans and the number that fled from Castro, but they no longer win the Latino vote there. I mean, Trump did much better with Florida Latinos than he did nationally, but he still lost it to Hillary. All these polls are showing him winning the Latino vote in Florida right now.
Well, and nationally, he's gaining the black vote too.
And doing really well with the black vote. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If he got 8% of the black vote last time and now he's going to get 18%, and if he got 27% of the Latino vote and now he's going to get 40%, how do you have him behind? Yeah. They put him behind by presuming that an unrealistically large number of blacks are going to vote, and by presuming that there's going to be a huge turnout of first-time voters voting against Trump. The young people that they're always dreaming of coming out. But from what I've looked at the internals in the polls in Florida, I don't expect Florida to be like a half a point or a point. I expect Florida to be more like 3-4 points for Trump. I think that Trump will comfortably carry Florida. What are you seeing there on the ground?
I believe so too. I actually believe he's going to comfortably carry every state. It's going to be another McGovern, in my opinion.
Be that severe.
Yeah, but what troubles me is unlike the Nixon McGovern, I don't think the losers are going to say, well, we lost. Right. They're going to take to the streets. Now, I also believe that there's going to be a new protocol come November 4th about rioting in the streets with respect to the president's inaction. It's another topic. We won't go down that rabbit hole. But I am encouraged by Florida. First of all, the governor, Ron DeSantis, a solid Republican in the House prior to becoming the governor of Florida, has demonstrated a great deal of leadership. He started by pretty much rolling back Common Core. Now, not to the satisfaction of the anti-Common Core,
Right.
but he has made great strides in defederalizing the school system. Of course, the coronavirus, now the whole thing's in disarray. But he took the lead, and other states then kind
Mark,
of,
you're wearing a mask.
yeah. But his most recent move is extremely bold. And
Yes.
and I'm telling you, I just want to just jump up and applaud him, and I hope that it will enable other governors. Because again, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, if you get on the highway, I expect to reach my destination unobstructed by a mob, even if the mob is for Trump. Okay, I don't care who you're for. I bought these highways with my tax dollars, and I want quiet enjoyment of these roadways.
Yeah, no, that's not peaceful protesting. Peaceful protesting is not blocking traffic, okay, and yelling and screaming at people. And there have been cases of people pulled from their cars, people intimidated, people hurt, so on and so forth. So yeah, no, I absolutely support what he's doing.
Have you looked at some of the specifics? Okay, if you are a driver and you are surrounded by a mob and you hit the gas pedal, you are immune from prosecution. But it goes even further. He had this law, and it's not law yet, but I hope it will be, and I mean tomorrow, is that there's a concept in government called sovereign immunity. Okay, the state of Florida, for example, I know this personally because my brother-in-law, while working as an employee of the state of Florida, was injured by another state employee who ran over his foot, basically. And at that time, the limit of sovereign immunity for the state of Florida had been $100,000. It had recently been increased to $300,000. The legal concept here is governments are sovereignly immune. There are limits to their, how much they can be sued for. Okay. This bill calls for the elimination of sovereign immunity to any governmental authority, any jurisdiction, removes sovereign immunity. So look at the implications of this. If you and I are sitting on the city council, or you and I are in positions of leadership in the police department and fail to act to secure the public safety because of a riot, we can be sued individually,
right,
and win. Folks, this is huge. This is huge. It makes a felony. Just throwing an object. Okay? Throwing an object. Doesn't matter. It could be a piece of trash. Okay? Speaking of that, did you see that big demonstration at the mall over the weekend? All the burning buildings and all the riots and protests and injuries and the police action that was required to calm this mass of humanity praying for our country.
Yeah.
Folks, which America do you want? I don't care what party you're affiliated with. Which America do you want? You want that? Or do you want mob rule? I mean, I think that's why I'm optimistic, Roger, is I think, and I also think that these polls are basically don't reach out, the tentacles of those polls don't reach out into rural America. Now, Florida is two states. You have the state north of I-4, and you have the state south of it. Okay, the north of I-4, the only county that Biden's going to carry is Leon County, Tallahassee, primarily Democrat. Ron DeSantis, by the way, won election to governor in a squeaker against Andrew Gilliam, who started his political career as the youngest person ever elected to city council in the state of Florida. He almost won. He came that close.
Right.
He was later found in a rather embarrassing situation with a male prostitute or something to that effect. Doesn't matter. I don't know the particulars, but he shouldn't have been there. He has subsequently said he is now identifying himself as a bisexual.
Yeah.
Okay, and what America do you want?
Right.
And I'm just optimistic that there's still the vast majority of the American public, Republicans and Democrats, are just ordinary people who want to live their
Well,
life in peace.
I agree with you. I'm optimistic as well. I'm not confident. I expect it to be maybe a little closer than you do, and I'm not confident. I'm hoping for the best. Um, the fact of the matter is, for too long, we let Democrats control the schools and we let them control the media. And the youngsters are not educated today. They're just not. And some of the insane ideas that come out can be quite scary. But I think that you are right. I think that a lot of these people are going to come out and vote for Trump. I also think there are going to be people who would normally vote Democrat who aren't going to vote just because they're like, man, this is just too much. This is just absolutely too much. So I do expect a Trump win, barring though something like, a major senior moment, or I don't think tomorrow is going to make a difference. There'll be a lot of headlines about the debate, but barring something surprising, I don't think that tomorrow is going to make a big difference. But it's you would also have to believe that the Trump campaign was going to somehow not do as well getting out its vote, despite the fact that they actually have huge money and a huge ground organization this time. Because they didn't have that last time. They had nothing.
They didn't think they were going to win. Let me bring up one final thought. We'll have to close it. By the way, folks, what you are watching and hearing is the kind of conversation that Roger and I have very frequently, and this has been going on for years. And you're just getting to listen in tonight. Roger and I are very different. Our history goes way back. He is a devout Catholic. I am a devout Southern Baptist. And we've had some very interesting and spirited conversations, but always in the spirit of respect. Roger, as I look forward and look over the horizon, it gives me pause to wonder sometimes. How do I put this? The American future rests in the hands of the voter, it seems. But an interesting thing has happened in the political landscape that you observe on social media and you observe on the media in general. Every time I see, and I'm not a Trump lover, okay? I didn't vote for Trump last time. We won't go there. But invariably, when you see people attacking Trump on the left, they are attacking things that he's said, and by golly, he said them. Whether you're on the left or on the right, if you're politically observant whatsoever, when a political figure says one thing and does something different, do you go with what they say or what they do?
Yeah, you go with what they do.
What Trump said. But he did say them. And the funny thing is they will attempt to claim moral high ground and say Trump, did this or acted in some way that's bad, assuming that by assassinating his character, that the rest of us think that he has a squeaky clean character, and that's why we voted for him. I don't know many people that support Trump. They are constantly apologizing for what he says, and in fact some of the things about his character. But invariably they say we're not voting for a pastor, we're voting for a president to run this country. It just seems odd to me that we've lost our way in just observing facts. What has he done? When you look at what he's done, that's hard to argue with. Now, you can argue about what he says and things he's done in his past, But Florida, University of Florida had a head coach, Steve Spurrier. Nobody liked Steve Spurrier. He was a jerk. He's a great coach, though. If I wanted to win some football games, he would be on my short list of coaches, even though I disrespect him in many ways as an individual. Just wanted to bring that up and get your commentary.
Absolutely. You look at what they do. And Trump has always been one given to hyperbole. And Trump has always been the type of negotiator that believes that your opening statement just hits him right between the eyes and is way more than you could ever dream of getting. Okay. He's always been that type, and he has his flaws. Okay. That's who he is. That's who he is. But no, when you look at what he's done, he kept his word on foreign policy and military policy. He kept his word on taxes. He kept his word on judges. Now, we can have an argument about whether or not he's kept his word on the wall or the border, simply because, but the Democrats sure have fought him on that, and they've fought him through the courts, and they've fought him everywhere else. And in fact, where he has always been accused of, he's going to be like this strong man that's going to go in and take away people. Sometimes I wish he was a little bit more of a strong man. I wish he would have already invoked the Insurrection Act, okay, and sent in the military to stop some of these riots. So, when you're complaining about the bluster or the crudeness or anything like that, no, I don't care. I don't care. And I look at what he's done. Mark, he's been the most pro-life president in my lifetime. He's outdone Reagan on judicial appointments. He's shown up at the Marches for Life. And he has done what he can do to keep us out of stupid wars. And he actually kept his word. Look at the whole world was supposed to end when the embassy to Jerusalem. Instead, peace deals have started breaking out. He's been a good president.
It's hard to argue with results. You can criticize his character, and I think that criticism is warranted. But to vote for Biden, I mean, come on. I mean, anyway, well, folks, we could actually continue for another hour, but we're not. Okay. First of all, Roger's phone is on battery power, so he won't be holding up much longer. I've enjoyed our conversation, as I always do, Roger, and I appreciate the insight that you offer and the research that you've done. Folks, it is worth noting, and I'll give you the final 30 seconds. Roger is actually limited in his engagement in electronic devices and social media. Tell us in 30 seconds or less, Exodus 90.
Exodus 90, people can look it up if they want to, but it's a spiritual program that has prayer and fraternity and asceticism as a part of it. And my social media is very limited. My news is very limited right now. And the basic idea of it is that sports and politics and entertainment shouldn't be more important than God. And if you find that you're starting to talk about sports more than you're talking about God, or you're talking about politics more than you're talking about God, or your hope for saving the country is more in your political activism than your spiritual activism, sometimes it's time to take a step back and just spend a whole lot more time in prayer and live a much simpler life.
It's kind of a spiritual fasting of sorts, and it actually has some elements of physically fasting. But Roger, we're gonna have to wrap it up. I really do enjoy speaking with you, Roger, and you've been a great friend since the day we met, and I just am thankful that you've done that research and offer your opinions in such an insightful and succinct way. You're a good man. We appreciate your being a part of this, and
praying, man.
Let's do this again after the election. How about that?
All right, will do.
Sounds good. All right, folks, that was a long one, pjnet.tv, and I hope that you were riveted to all of that great stuff as we watch and participate here, and we appreciate Roger sharing with us. Folks, we are out of time. We will be back tomorrow night as usual. We have all the recordings made for Wednesday night and Thursday night as I will be traveling to Atlanta at the generosity and request of one of our own, Doug Carter. And I'll be meeting with him up there at a Faith and Freedom, whatever thingy, rally, convention, whatever it's called. And looking forward to that. It'll kind of be a change of pace for me, and a much needed one, I would say. And at the same time, be more than just taking a few days off. So time to go. You know what I'm going to say is I have two questions for you to ask yourself and answer yourself. First, what is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And secondly, when was that? I hope as you reflect over the thoughts that have been brought forward tonight, that you'll see the need for boldness, and that you'll never allow yourself to be satisfied with your answers to either of those two questions.